Everyone, it's Lisa. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a Halloween card using this Haunted House to Stamp set from the Stamps of Life. And as you can see, it is a very large stamp. It actually measures about 4¼ inches by 3½, and it comes with the moon with the clouds, 2 ghosts, boo, and spooky greetings. And I just love how large this stamp set is. You can also get the matching dies. So let's say you didn't want to color and you just like to do paper piecing, you can use the dies to do the paper piecing as well. I'm going to start out by doing some coloring, and I'm going to set it to music. And if you don't want to watch the coloring, you can just skip over this and get right to the card portion. I will be using the Slimline Card Die Set from the Stamps of Life to make this card. So this large die will actually make your card base, and then I will be using the starry background as well as the layering piece for this card. I start out by using the Slimline layering die, and I die cut a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock. And I am using my blending tool and various Stamps of Life inks, and I'm just adding some ink to this piece of cardstock. So I start out with the Midnight at the very top, and then I come in with the Blueberry, and then the bottom portion is the Grape ink, and just blend all of those out on this card layer. And then I'm coming in with my licorice ink, and I'm going to add some licorice ink to the edges of that card panel. Since this is a Halloween card and I wanted to create more of a spooky feel, I thought that that licorice ink would look like more of a spooky background for my card. And then you can just go back in with your other inks and ink blend that out. So I'm going to take this panel and I'm going to use this starry background die that came with the Slimline Card Die Set. And you can see that there are the stars and the circles. There are a bunch of circles on one side and then not as many on the other. So really just decide if you want the top of your card to have a lot of circles and stars or a little bit. I want the top of my card to have a lot of circles, so I'm placing that die at the top of the cardstock. And when you are using this die, you need to make sure you have that large rectangle around the starry background die in order for it to cut out of your paper. Next, I am going to use this layering die and die cut a piece of banana cardstock. That's going to actually go in the background, so you can see those pretty stars coming through the background of this ink blended piece. Next, I'm going to take my Tombow liquid glue and just add some glue around the entire border of that background piece, as well as throughout the middle portion, just to make sure that it does adhere well to this banana piece of cardstock. And the banana cardstock, again, it is the same exact size as this layering piece because it was cut out of the same die, so it will fit perfectly together when you layer those on. So I'm just pressing that down to make sure I have a snug fit, and that's going to be the nice background. So here I thought I was going to use some black borders, but I decided, you'll see in the video coming up, that I'm not going to use those black borders. I'm going to actually change it to some green. But I also decided that I didn't want to have all of this white showing on the sides of this haunted house. So I just fussy cut some of the white off, and whatever was left, I'm just taking my black marker. Actually, it's not the black marker. It was the C10 marker that I used on my stamp, and I'm just coloring up the white that's showing. So I'm just getting rid of all of that white and coloring up with that C10, because again, I didn't want the white showing because this is like a haunted, it's supposed to be a spooky card. So too much white, I just think distracted from the actual theme that I was going with. So I will go ahead and do that around the entire edge of this haunted house. Next, you see that I die cut 3 hillside borders using the border die that is there on the table, and I die cut them out of the artichoke paper, and I'm just adding some ink with the artichoke ink. I added some to the edge of that hillside border, as well as I'm just taking my ink blending tool and just adding some on top just to add some dimension to those hillside borders, and I will do that to all 3 of these borders. I also took the fence die and I die cut it out of the licorice cardstock, and I'm adding some licorice ink to the edges, but you really can't see it, so I don't know why I continue, because it was kind of pointless adding this ink, I think, in my opinion. But I did it anyway. And here I'm just laying out my card. So I know I want the tallest hillside border there towards the top, and it's going to go actually flat against that card panel, and it's going to go a little bit behind that haunted house. The haunted house will be in front of that one. And then I'm also going to have the fence, which I want to be in front of the haunted house. So I'm going to attach it to the middle hillside border by just attaching some tape to the back of the fence just to hold it in place. And you see there that it's going to be layered right there on top. And then that third hillside border will be there at the very bottom. So I'm just kind of planning out how I want everything, and then I just mark with a pencil where I want that top border to be because I had everything strategically placed and I didn't want to lose my placement. And then I add some glue to the back and add it flat against that card panel right where that pencil mark was on that card panel. And then I just turn that card panel over and just trim off the excess. And then here again, I'm just placing everything once again just to make sure I have everything where I want it to be. So again, that fence border is going to go there in the middle. It'll be my second border layer. So I'm going to go ahead and add my haunted house. And then just kind of placing that fence where I want it. And then just snipping off some of the sides because I know I'm not going to want to add glue to the whole back side of that. So I just kind of made it a good width to work with, and then just adding glue to the back of that. And you can see how I flip that fence over and just adding a little bit of glue there to the bottom of the fence so that it adheres to that cardstock, and putting a little bit of glue on the back of those on the back of the fence panels and adding that to my card. I wanted that fence to overlap a little bit of that haunted house, and then just pressing that down really well. And then I will be able to just trim off the excess cardstock on the side of that card panel. For the last hillside border, I'm going to add that to the bottom of that card layer, but I'm going to use some double-sided adhesive foam. And the reason being is because I want to insert some pumpkins between those layers. So you'll see when I add the foam, I'm not adding it all the way to the top of that hillside border. I'm actually leaving a little bit of space at the top so that I can easily insert those pumpkins when it comes time to do so. So here I'm just peeling back that adhesive backing, and I'm adding that entire hillside border to the bottom of that panel. And then any extra cardstock extending from the edges, we'll just turn that over and snip off that extra cardstock. I'm going to bring in these pumpkins, which I colored off screen, and they are from the Goodies for Wheelbarrow stamp set. So I colored up 3, die cutted all 3 of them, and I'm just adding them here to my card. 2 will be tucked behind that first layer of the hillside border, and then the other one will just be placed there on top. And to just complete that look, because I didn't want that pumpkin just sitting there at the bottom, I went ahead and die cut a grass border die using my grass die from the Borders set. And I die cut it out of the same color cardstock as those hillside borders. It's the artichoke, and then just adding some ink to the top edges of that just for some added dimension. And I'm going to go ahead and add that with some glue to the bottom of that card panel. So that one will also look like it's tucked behind the grass. And just line that up with the edge of your card panel, and then just trim off the sides. And then for the sentiment, I'm going to choose to use the sentiment Boo, and I am going to be using some Versamark ink. I'm just stamping that up with some Versamark ink on some black cardstock. And then just using some white embossing powder to put over top of that, and then I will use my heat tool to do the embossing. And you can see there on the table, I previously inked it up with some white ink, which the white ink was so light, and you can see it wasn't as vivid as the embossing powder, so that's why I switched that up. So here you see me just using my heat tool to melt that embossing powder. And now I'm just going to add a few of these ghosts, one there to the top and one looks like it's coming out of the window on the haunted house, and then add the sentiment there to the top. So next I need to attach this to a Slimline card base, so I'm using the die set that came with the Slimline card dies from the Stamps of Life, and I die cut the card base die out of the licorice cardstock and just folded it down the middle because it automatically puts that score line down the middle for you. And I'm just adding glue to the back of my card layer and adding this to the Slimline card base. Now for the inside of the card, because this card is a black card, I wanted to add a color cardstock so that when you write your message, you will have a nice colored background to write on. And I die cut the layering die from the Slimline card set out of the banana cardstock, and I'm using the Spooky Greetings and just inking that up with some licorice ink and stamping that down using my Misty. And then I just added that layer to the inside of the card and figured I would go ahead and add a couple of these other pieces here to the inside since I did not add them to the front. And that will complete this card. I love how this card turned out. So let me know your comments, what you thought of this card, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more card making inspiration. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.